Welcome to Virtually Amazing, the podcast for virtual assistants, with me, Shelley Fishel of Tomorrow's VA, and Joe Brianti of JLB Business Consulting. Each week we interview guest experts aimed at helping you grow your VA business. So sit back, grab a cuppa, and tune in for a fun-filled hour. Welcome, listeners, to this week's episode of Virtually Amazing, the podcast for virtual assistants. And this is just exciting. We've had a run of really fantastic guests, and today's guest is no different. Another fabulous, amazing speaker. We are going to be interviewing the wonderful Michelle Ibbs. And Michelle Ibbs in the VA world is quite famous. She has set up a couple of brilliant Facebook groups, and she's, phenomenal networker.
Yes.
Joe, you know Michelle?
Yes, through networking online. We've never met in person, but isn't that how it goes these days?
Yeah, it definitely does go these days. Yeah, so I met Michelle through her VA network, and also she has an online business network. And one of our early guests, Tristan, works with Michelle or works in her office when people can be in offices, that is. So it's very exciting to have her come on as a guest today, and I'm sure we're going to have a really, really great conversation. So once we've finished, this is the last one we're going to record today. What's on your agenda for later this afternoon, Joe?
I've got 2 client meetings this afternoon, and then I'm going to take a walk with the dog.
That sounds like fun. I'm going to make soup. So I've got
Lovely.
Soup on my mind. As soon as I said to my husband just now when I went to have lunch, I'm going to make soup. His ears perked up. He loves soup. He could eat soup any time of the year. So I better
what soup are we doing today?
Today's going to be carrot and coriander soup. So I really like that soup. It's a nice thick soup. And that's what we're going to do. And I tend to cook a big batch of soup, and we'll probably eat it for about 3 or 4 days, but that's okay. So it's not worth making a tiny amount. Definitely not. No. Anyway, I think we'll queue up and get Michelle in. What do you think?
Brilliant idea.
See you in a minute, listeners, or hear you in a minute. Hello, Michelle. That was good fun. I love that. You're our first
very
guest.
Grand entrance.
Yeah, our first guest to play music. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for welcoming me. It was, I love that song, Shelley. Do you know why?
Because on.
Virtual PAs are so much more than a number in anyone's little red book.
Totally, absolutely agree. So we are here today. We are recording this on November the 16th, listeners. It will go out later in the year. As we all know, we make best use of our time. We're in different time zones, and we have to coordinate our diaries, Joe and I, and we get confused sometimes because we're only human. But it's a real pleasure, Michelle, to have you on the podcast. Neither Joe nor I have met you in person. But we're both in your groups, and you do so much for the VA community. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to tell our listeners who you are, how you got to do what you do. You also work with the wonderful Tristan, who's a great guy and been on the podcast too. He was our second guest, and it was a great interview. It's well listened to, watched and listened, because we go on YouTube too. So let's tell everybody about you. I'm going to stop waffling.
Where do you want me to begin? I actually do not come from a VA background or a PA background. I'm a nurse. So I started as a nurse, and I still actually do some nursing part-time. I prefer to do dementia nursing now. I just find that easier. I started as a nurse, went into medical sales, worked in medical sales very successfully for more years than I can remember. Worked for Johnson & Johnson, regularly hit their top sales spot and had wonderful prizes and everything. And then I split up with my husband, because actually sales in those days, back in the 90s, it was cutthroat. It was, you gave blood. Working 16-hour days was actually quite normal. But the rewards were good. I subsequently met John, who became my second husband, and he took me from the sales environment into the steel industry. He said, come and work for me, selling in the steel industry. So I did. It's like, yeah, okay, if you can sell one thing, you can sell another, it's fine. So we took a little business turning over about £360,000 a year. We took that to a business turning over 1.6 million.
Wow.
In about 7 years.
Wow.
And life was good. Life was really good. We did the Caribbean 3 times a year. I think in 2006-07 we did Antigua, Grenada. No, we didn't do Antigua. Sorry, Grenada, Mexico, Samos, Spain. We did Epinay. They're just some of the ones I can remember.
Wow.
It was a fabulous lifestyle. And then in April 2007, he came home from a game of golf, and I said, did you win? He said, yes. I said, good. I said, good game then. He said, yes, and by the way, the marriage is over. And I just went, sorry? And that was it. That was literally it. A week.
Goodness.
2 weeks later, he'd actually moved out of the house, and everything could
Wow.
change. But we continued to work together until the October, which wasn't great. But in the October, he removed me out of the business, and I suddenly found myself, I bought him out of the house. I paid off everything, and I found myself with £500,000 on mortgage and no job.
Oh,
So
dear.
I'd gone from 100 grand a year salary to 0. And but all the phones were on divert to me. So if nobody answered the phone on one of the 3 sites, the calls would come to my mobile. It didn't matter where I was in the world, the calls would come to my mobile. We never missed a call. And probably why we grew the business. And I said, so I phoned the telecoms guy and said, can you please take me off the divert, because this is adding insult to injury. I don't work for them anymore, and I'm still getting the overflow. And he said, what are you going to do? I said, no idea. And he said, have you ever thought of being a virtual assistant? I said, no. What do they do? This is back in 2007. And I downloaded everything. All I could find was stuff predominantly from a lady in Australia. Can't remember her name. I downloaded everything that woman ever wrote, and I stuck it all in a suitcase, and I flew out to Antigua, because that's the sensible thing to do when you've got no income.
Yeah.
Totally.
Fly to Antigua.
Sounds great.
Lie on a beach. And I thought, okay, I'll be a virtual assistant. So I set it up. I'd set up 2 other businesses with my ex-husband in the steel industry. So I knew how to set a business up, and I knew all the ins and outs. So I set it up. And then the first day I called it, I'm your PA, and I sat down and I thought, there's one problem here. I don't type.
I thought you were going to say I haven't got any clients.
So I am a 2-finger typist. So it's that, okay, that could be difficult. Getting the clients didn't bother me. That didn't worry me too much. I did think, well, I'm not sure where I'm going to get them from. That might be a problem. And somebody said, you need to go networking. And I'm like, okay, what's that then? It was the case to learn on the job. When I see these people that have everything mapped out to perfection before they start, and I think, God, how did they do that? I literally did it on the fly. I've got to make money. So I joined B&I. When I joined them, I didn't tell them the business wasn't up and running. Don't let on. I joined them in the December, and I couldn't trade until the February, because I was actually on garden leave from my ex-husband, and as it was all going into court, I thought, I can't mess this up. So in the February, I was going to the network meetings, and I was just thinking, please God, don't let anybody want me to do work for them. Please don't let me want to do, I can't. And in the February, we hit the ground running. And there was a lovely lady who I met at a network meeting, and I've just fired my 3rd virtual assistant in less than 12 months.
Oh dear.
Well, if you want to crack at it, love, you can. And I said,
yeah.
She's still with me today. 13 years on, she is still with me. And it just took off from there. So we currently have, obviously, I think a lot of VAs will know that their client levels do go up and down, up and down. I've done it a slightly different model because I do employ my staff. So I don't work as much with associates. I tend to employ staff, and they work from our offices. So although we're virtual to our clients, our offices are still open, and we work from the offices. And we currently have 185 different clients on our books.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Most of them come from networking.
And do you specialize in any particular area? You know, what's your niche? We've been talking about niche the last couple of episodes.
Call handling. And when I say call handling, it's calls in, calls out. It doesn't matter, you know, if it's on the phone, we're there. We also do the live web chat, which is actually call handling online. Think about it, it's typed call handling. Those are our main things. We're not we'll do bits of stuff. So it could be we do outgoing calls for booking appointments or for chasing up on outstanding invoices. We're not really the ones that tend to do transcription or come up with presentations, and you know, a lot of the things that VAs will do, not really our bag.
That's okay. When I set up my face-to-face training company in 2007, so around about the same time, I was very clear in my mind that I didn't want an answer machine answering my telephone. Because even back in 2007, email wasn't as prevalent as it is today, and people wanted an answer, and I didn't want to miss a client call. So I had a virtual call handling service that answered my phone, and it was brilliant because I would have clients saying, well, I spoke to that nice lady in your office the other day, and you know, they didn't know that she wasn't in my office, so it was only me.
But that's the thing, to be honest, and we see that time and time again, that we get people that don't realize that we aren't part of that company, because that's the way that the staff are trained. When you answer that call, you work for them, and all your passion goes to them. So I had somebody jump up at work the other day and she said, yes, yes, yes. And I'm going, what happened? She said, I've just signed a new client. I said, that's fantastic. Wasn't for us. It's for one of our clients, but she was so excited because that's how close we work with them. So it is, and if you get it's like anything. I mean, VAs will probably admit, if you get a job that you don't particularly like, you don't give it your passion. You may as well not do it, you know, because it isn't worth it, and all the money in the world, it just isn't worth it, because it'll drag you down. But when you've got the stuff that you love, it's not a job. It just flows, and it's great.
Yeah. Jo, have you got any questions for Michelle before we go on and chat some more?
Well, I don't really have any questions because I knew that you did call handling. But I just want to say, what an amazing backstory. I had no idea about kind of the ups and downs that your life had gone through, and to actually go from where you were, which, as you said, was nothing, to where you are now, and you have a very profitable business, you know, you are known throughout the industry in the UK. Hats off to you, you know. And I can attest, I have to say, because I've spoken to your VAs, because they do call handling for Tristan. And one of those very lovely ladies gave me directions when I'd gone the wrong way round in the roadworks coming up to his office a few weeks ago.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
They do try and help.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Michelle, you mentioned BNI. That was also the first physical, no, it wasn't the first. The first network I went to was a network called Academy, which was both online and offline.
Penny and Peter, Penny
and Thomas Power.
Thomas Power.
Yeah, Penny is OBE now, but they had this vision before Facebook, before LinkedIn, before any of the online networks took off, but they linked it with a face-to-face network. And they used to have a monthly meeting at the Tower Hotel in London, and then at the Grosvenor Hotel, they moved venues. And I used to go along, and then they put on an event. It was something about marketing, and I knew nothing about marketing at that point. I know a bit more now, but then I really knew nothing. And I went to this event, and I walked in, you know, those days, and this is going to lead into the next thing. One of those, I walked into a networking event, and I had on my favorite jacket and my best lipstick, and I just felt good. And I walked in, and I must have looked like I knew what I was doing or talking about. And this guy came up to me, introduced himself, and he was an IT support company, and actually turned into one of my best referrers. But the point of this is he was also chairman of a local BNI group. And he said, you must come to my BNI group. So I did. It was the wrong BNI group for me, but it took me a while to work that out. But you mentioned BNI, so I know how did you get away with 3 months of not doing any work at BNI?
Well, I was able to give referrals.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, I need to, and actually it was quite easy because I'm used to make such a cock up of my 60 seconds that probably nobody realized what I did anyway. So it wasn't too bad. But then I started, I was seriously blessed in BNI because the group that I joined, it was part of what was the South Derbyshire and the Black Country. So it was a split region. And the guy that was running it at the time, he said to me after a few months, he said, have you ever thought of being an ambassador for BNI? And I said, no. What do they do? Like, what do they do? He said, well, basically what you do now, you just look after everybody. So I said, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. And then it wasn't much longer. And he said, so have you ever thought of being a director? I said, no. What do they do then? And so it went on. But as soon as I went in as assistant director to him, I was the only director in the Black Country. So he got South Derbyshire and I was in the Black Country. So when we did things like conferences, I didn't have a team to go with. So consequently, I got put in with some of the London teams. And I got introduced to some seriously big names in BNI who would all seem to take me under their wing. You know, so Hazel Walker runs one of the biggest regions of BNI in the States. And in fact, Hazel Walker, Frank DeRaffley and Ivan Meisner wrote a book, Business Networking and Sex, Not What You Think. That's the full title. It's the business networking and sex is in big letters, and then not what you think is in slightly smaller letters. So I've had dinner with Frank. I had a wonderful 2 days with Hazel up in Scotland. You know, I've met Ivan 2-3 times. These people, they were just amazing, and they would teach me stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, okay, yeah, I can do that. And then the region split. And when the region split, I was asked to take on the running of the Black Country. So then that made me an area director. So I had to go to all these meetings with all the executive directors. You know, these are the real important people that run the regions. But some of those, they were phenomenal. And they gave me tips. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. I can do that. So I used to watch the ones that were really doing well. And then I'd also do the John Cleese style of it. You know, I'd watch the ones that were crap at networking and not getting anything. And it's like, right, don't do that and do more of that. And so it went on from there.
That's amazing. And that's obviously how you came to be such an authority on networking.
It was because these people were giving me so much information. And I mean, last year I do other networking other than BNI, but last year BNI alone brought us in, because everything's tracked, £162,000 worth of business. That was in 2019. And I think that's a pretty good return on investment.
That's a very good return. I'd have been very happy with that. I didn't get anywhere near that when I was there. But,
year one we did 22,000. Year one in BNI I did 22,000 on the back of referrals. But it's really it is, I won't say hard work, but you've got to get it right.
Yes.
I spoke to a VA who was in BNI, and she'd had nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I couldn't believe it. And so I said to her, I mean, I am known, and both of you know, I'm known for being a bit blunt.
Yeah.
It's like, well, Tristan may have told you the story when he started networking. And I said to him, you know, if I could spend the next 10 minutes showing you how to get a better 60 seconds, that gets you business, would that be helpful? And he said, yes. And I said, fine, well, let's start with that with shit. So what we're going to do is, and we have been firm friends ever since. He said, I can't believe you actually said that to me. I said, well, I could have spent 10 minutes telling you what the problems were, but then I wouldn't have given you any information. So it was just like, yeah, that's no good. This is what we need to do. So this lady, I actually said to her, give me 60 seconds. And she did it. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not being funny, but there's your problem. Because your 60 seconds is perfect for selling to another VA, but you're not. That's where we have to look. It's not what we're not selling to each other.
No.
We know the industry, the VAs know the industry, but we're not selling to each other. We need to sell to the tradespeople, to the IT people, to the clinicians. These are the people that are going to buy our wares. So we need to engage with them.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen when it's like we're talking about being virtual assistants. And that's where that song comes in.
So what are your top tips for a great 60-second intro if I went to a BNI or another, networking? What would you recommend the approach?
I think drop any jargon, tell a story.
Yeah.
Tell a story and the difference it made. So with that I've just done there, for example, one that I did the other day. And so I started off, and have energy, have passion, especially at the moment when everything's on Zoom.
Yeah.
Because you watch them and you go, good morning, my name's John. I'm an accountant. I save people tax. And it's like, and then the next one, good morning, my name's Susan. I'm an IFA. I can invest people's money. And it's like, God, I've slipped my wrists. I've gone to sleep. I can't take any more. So, be the one that stands out. Yeah. It's I actually talk about in some of the network training I do, there are 4 types of props that you can have. One of them is actually quite difficult at the moment, but you can have a branding prop. This is a branding prop. My background is a branding prop. You've got your background, branding props. You can also have movement props. That's the one that's really tricky at the minute because you can't really move around. You can have a prop. So this is a prop. It's my telephone. That's a physical prop. I could use a physical prop. Then you have the prop that people really don't use, and that's a vocal prop.
Yes.
And your vocal prop, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I've grabbed their attention. You know, it could be that we use it with the music. Let me tell you a secret. Talk really fast and you'll tell them how desperate they are because everything is getting overflowing and nobody knows what to do. How about having a young virtual assistant who brings calmness into your life? So those are your vocal props. You can up it, down it. So with more than a number in my little red book, that's one that I've used. I tend to swap them round with. The other day I did "You're my first, my last, my everything." So you've got everybody. It's only 5 to 6 seconds bite of music. But more than a number in my little red book, and I started. I said, I'm more than a number in anybody's little red book. Do you know what I've done this week? And then I went on, and I saved £20,000 for a letting agent. I want to speak to more letting agents. In fact, who knows? Name of letting agent.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Absolutely brilliant.
That is brilliant.
So it's my first, my last, my first, my last, my everything. And I did that one, and everybody sort of looking. I said, listen, I probably won't be their first. But I pretty much guarantee I'll be their last, and I will be their everything. So
nice.
Yeah, there's so many that you could. I had hanging on the telephone, Blondie. It's
yes, that's an ideal one.
Yeah, just look at the songs that are out there. The only thing I would say, if anybody is doing that, if I go to a network meeting and somebody before me uses music, I tend to just ditch mine. So always have something else that you can do. And it doesn't work at all if you play it straight from your phone. It doesn't work. So if I just went on now, you heard it at the beginning. Sorry. So if I play that from here, if it will.
You can't hear it.
No, nothing. Even if I try and turn it up, it's nothing. You lose it. So you need to have. I mean, I've got 200 quid's worth of speakers sat right next to my computer. So you do need to have something that does it, and you can't do it all the time.
No.
So you have to come up with different things. Just things that make people remember.
There was one B&I meeting that I will never forget. Actually, they were a creative agency, and in fact, they did my first branding, which was about the pink in You're Honest, which is totally not my colour. And eventually it had to go because it just isn't me. But that's another story. But they did my branding, and Jamie, who was one of the designers, came in, and I can't remember what they were offering at the time. I just remember he came in, it was the Meerkats had just come out, the Go Compare, and the insurance ones, compare the meerkat.com, compare the market. And he came in and he was dressed as Oleg, and he had a coat, he had a cape on, and he put on this Russian accent, and he did this whole spiel, this whole 60 seconds in this way, and it's really stood out to this day because he was the only one that ever did that. So you're absolutely right, it does make you stand out.
It does. We've got one coming up, and I'll quickly share it with you. If I haven't actually done this one yet, but it won't go out before I do it, so that's fine. We've been told that we've got to do one on movie themes, something to do with movies, and I'm like, oh, how the hell do you do that and be remembered? So again, little bit more work has to go into it, to prepare. Everything's about preparing. If you don't prepare, forget it. You're not going to get anywhere. So this morning I have a little Bohemian Rhapsody for you. Who do you know who had one vision? They went headlong into business, thought they would play the game, said, I want it all. And in a flash, they were under pressure saying, I want to break free. And you know, without your help, there will be another one bites the dust. Don't let someone you know go radio gaga. Don't cast them loose on the 7 seas of rye or leave them thinking, who wants to live forever? Introduce them to the killer queen. Don't stop me now. I am somebody to love, a kind of magic. I don't just say, these are the days of our lives. At I'm Your PA, when we are introduced to a business, we see nobody but you. We focus on ensuring all calls are answered, quotes are followed up, customers are shown true service. In fact, we will rock you because we are the champions.
Phenomenal.
Oh, I love it.
Phenomenal. You got my job. You got my vote. 10 from me. Oh, that's fantastic. So those are your top networking tips. That's fantastic. And I love the idea of really focusing on what you're good at. So doing the jobs that you love.
Yeah, absolutely crucial. I mean, some of the stuff that Joe does, some of the stuff you do, Shelley, it's like I'd never be able to do it. And you know, we all know Tristan. It's if I could do what Tristan does or had a passion in the sort of things Tristan does, then I'd be an IT person, but I don't like it. Yeah. That's why I employ the services of Tristan.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And what he's done for the VA world is incredible.
Yeah,
because he gives us the same sort of support that these big businesses get from these massive companies. We can get it too, so that means we're all secure, you know. And but a lot of that has come from networking.
You
know, networking works.
It does, and I often think if I was to, I've coming to the end of my career, I'm at the other end of the spectrum, but I keep thinking if I was to really sit down and track back where all my business eventually came from, because a lot of the word of mouth stuff comes, and you don't always keep a track of who recommended who to who to who to who. And it probably all stems back to Academy, because that was my first introduction to networking and the first network I joined. And then I went to BNI. And then I eventually stopped networking and I started networking online, but probably with the people who I networked with in person. So it kind of all does link together. And yeah, absolutely. And it is tough at the beginning. You know, I'm a trainer. I'm used to getting up and standing and performing in front of people, if you like, and teaching people how to do whatever it is that I teach them to do. But going to a networking event isn't a training event. So it was still tough to turn up and give a 60 minutes, a 60 seconds. That would be awful, wouldn't it? 60 seconds about what you do. You know, I think everybody can at the beginning be a bit scared of it.
I do have, which I need to start and put more stuff out there, especially at the moment. It's with everything being on Zoom, it's like, you tend to get lost a little bit. But there is a Facebook page, The Networking Queen. And I do try and put stuff on there just to give people tips. In our newsletter that we send out, Pink Squiggles, I always have networking tips in there. So it's got the four parts of it, because there's always a bit about I'm Your PA, because otherwise it'd be a bit pointless sending the newsletter out. But we then have the Networking Queen. So, which I should say is not a title that I suddenly made up. It was, I had somebody stand up and deliver a 60 seconds. The theme was Queen. Actually, that particular week, the theme was Queen. And this lady delivered a 60 seconds at the end. And it was all about everything I'd done for the group. I was there with tears, and she said, so please, everybody, big cheer for our networking queen. And that's where it came from, and it stuck. And everywhere I went, it's like, oh, it's the networking queen. So in the end, I just trademarked it.
Absolutely.
Thought, okay, if it can help people, let's do it. So yeah, so there's bits and pieces that we put out about that, and then I have a pinky pal, and that's anybody I've met through networking. They don't need to be a client, and it's like, let's just tell their story. So we stick that out, and then the bottom is the piece de resistance, is Rosie's roamings, because anybody that knows me knows I've got a wonderful cockapoo who is actually the postdoc. So so people are always welcome, but there's always bits. I'm forever putting bits here, there, and everywhere about networking, and if people need help, just say, you know, we can get them to get business through networking. It's not difficult.
It's just been amazing, absolutely amazing. I can listen to you for hours. It's brilliant. Really, really brilliant. And you know, I've learned quite a lot, and I shall incorporate some of the things that you've mentioned. I shall think on a little more, specifically the use of voice, which I think I most of the time do quite well, but I do sometimes speak too fast. So I am going to start to slow down.
Can I give one last thing that I would also throw in there? Remove the word you out of your 60 seconds, because we're never selling to the room. So
Yes.
if you imagine I'm doing 60 seconds on call handling, and I said, so if you're not answering your calls, you could be missing opportunities for business. So why don't I just say, you stupid people? May as well slap, slap, slap.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you. Whereas if we swap that round, I'm looking for the people who would have loved to have been here, but they know by sitting here, they wouldn't be answering their calls and missing potential opportunities for business. Give them my details, because working together, we can all have more business.
Yeah, absolutely.
You take it away and you assume nobody in that room is ever going to want to buy from you. And then all of a sudden they do. It's like, oh, okay.
No, absolutely. I do remember all the time having it drummed into you that you're never selling to the people in the room. You're selling to the people they know, and the people that they know, and they know, and they know. It's not the people in the room. Fascinating chat, and well done for overcoming all of your backstory difficulties. And I know you had you've experienced firsthand the pandemic, haven't you?
Yeah, I had 7 weeks of COVID. That was fun. I went back into nursing. The idea being, if I was doing nursing, I didn't need to take a salary out of the business, which meant I could top the staff up that were on furlough, which in theory was a really good idea until I got COVID.
Oh,
and then
no.
like, yeah, okay, I'm a bit screwed now. And it was rough.
Yeah.
It really was. I'd say to anybody out there, at the moment, one of the things I discovered, vitamin D is actually really good. So if you're not taking vitamin D, highly recommend it. And if you are in such a position that you end up with it, please sleep on your stomach. It really helps. But yeah, it was rough. It really was rough.
Yeah.
And also the reason I did the nursing is because the business we lost. It's great having loads and loads of clients, but we dropped, I think it was 75%.
Wow.
First one. Yeah. We've just dropped probably, we came back to full. And then when they decided that they were going to lock us back down on the 5th of November, we're probably down about 40% at the minute.
Yeah, it's really tough out there.
Yeah.
And it's tough for everybody. My heart goes out to those people that are on their own, that are elderly, nobody's talking to them. They're people that have lost their jobs, people who live in small apartments with kids who are now at home. I mean, all of those, you know, I count my blessings every day, and I haven't thankfully caught it. So
just take great care, everybody. It's just, it is a nasty virus. It is out there. Yeah, it's not good. And just keep an eye on people. Just phone them up. In a lot of cases, phone them. Don't Zoom them. Phone them. Because nobody gets phone calls anymore.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. And it's just nice.
We send a WhatsApp message or a text message or an email or a Zoom, but we don't phone. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Thank you very much, Michelle, for being a guest on Virtually Amazing, the podcast. It's been a blast. Any last words, Joe?
That was absolutely awesome and incredibly inspiring. I've got notes here. Huge amounts of notes. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, no problem. And if you want to connect off Zoom or whatever, give me a shout. It's about time. It's certainly, Joe and I, we keep promising to catch up. We still haven't.
I think you'll have to do it now. Pick up the phone. Pick up the phone.
And thank you so much. And if I can help anyone, just reach out. I am blunt, but reach out. Together we'll sort it out. It's all right. We'll get there.
Well, once again, thank you very much. And all the contact details for Michelle will be on the webpage that goes with this podcast episode.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Virtually Amazing, the podcast for virtual assistants with Shelley Fishel and Joe Brianti. We look forward to being with you again next week, where we'll have another awesomely amazing guest expert for you. See you then.